Am I more sober sounding on this one by any chance?
A little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we'll keep it. And that means I can drink more of this margarita.
They make mics for that?
Apparently, Steven says I sound better.
Hello and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 109. It is Thursday, May 19th, 2016. I'm Steven Seagraves, joined by Foz Mahmood and Seth Miller. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Buenos dias. Or buenos tardes, I suppose, perhaps.
Yeah, TARDIS.
Ja?
Ja.
You answered in German?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're recording tonight, actually.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm still in Mexico, so who knows?
Well, I've got the record button this time, too.
With great apologies to all of our listeners, we are in fact a week late because I managed to not record last week's episode.
But it was great.
It was a good episode, and then we got to the
And
end.
I also even managed to not record the promised parody of myself not recording, so I've been a little busy drinking in Mexico. I apologize.
Oh, details. You've been busy. Yeah, air quotes.
There was a wedding.
Una más margarita, por favor.
See, I had to run out of the restaurant with mine tonight. I had to ask the waiter for a to-go cup. It was great.
And he probably obliged you with no problem.
Oh, I'm at the end of our stay. We're actually at the Hyatt Puerto Vallarta, the Ziva.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all inclusive. So the only reason they needed to accommodate me is because they wanted to keep the glassware, not because I couldn't take the drink. I thought I was just being polite at that point, so like they didn't have to fetch it. Like housekeeping wouldn't have to bring it back down to them later.
You're doing them a favor.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Well, so we're talking about our dots, lines, and destinations this week. The dot is Toronto. We were talking about this last time we were recording the show, and so I guess we can kind of make it a little shorter this time. But basically, Porter is talking about how there was an article about how Porter's struggling in Toronto at the city airport that's on the island. Billy Bishop Airport. Thank you. And just kind of what's going on there and how Air Canada kind of wants to kill that off. That's their long-term goal, and how the government there is not inclined to help Porter out by opening the airport up to jets.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about this before on the show, and a lot of it comes down to the federal government and even the provincial government seems happy to be in Air Canada's pocket because there seems to be a lot of money there. And Air Canada will invest massive amounts to shut down City Airport or Billy Bishop and sort of kill whatever competition it creates. Not surprisingly, this is almost certainly bad for consumers.
I mean, it's surprising that the government is so pro-monopoly, for lack of a better term, because there really is no competition.
I mean, you have WestJet at Toronto, at Pearson, right?
Right.
And that's about it.
Yeah. There is no competition. I mean, Paz is right. There's so little competition, and somehow the government seems to think this is a good idea. I mean, that said, I suppose we should take solace in the fact that weird, I don't even remember the name of New Line, something like that. There's some wannabe scheduled charter service that's using a third party's airplanes, actually got approval to operate.
Into Bishop?
No, just in Canada in general.
Oh, okay.
But that was even a huge deal. And they're flying to all tertiary and quaternary cities. I think the biggest they're going to fly to is, there's some other airport, like Hamilton, maybe, is near Toronto, right?
Yep.
I think that's the biggest airport they're going to fly into.
Huh.
And they're doing like weird 737 connecting dots, kind of serving the underserved with really cheap fares. So
yeah,
that's going to go well.
I mean, this could really be the end of Porter, though. I mean, if they don't get the extension, because their plan was to buy C-Series jets, right? That was the long-term plan. And with the airport not having the runway extended, they can't do that.
Well, also, there's no jets allowed. There's a noise restriction.
Gotcha.
Interestingly, sort of parallels Long Beach, which has noise restrictions, and there it was defined as sort of a total amount of noise, and I'm not sure what the unit of measure is, but eventually they actually got additional slots allocated because planes are quieter now.
Yeah. And
that was Southwest is coming to Long Beach, right? They got three or four of the 8 new slots. JetBlue got a couple more. I think Delta got one maybe. So that's an example where someone looked at it and was like, yeah, we still want to protect our community and make sure things are quiet and yada, 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 but also we want to actually be like commercially viable and have operations and be useful to our customers. Yeah. So apparently that's not as important in Canada. I don't know.
I mean, Canadians historically have had really high airfare, and that's
yes. Part of that is very high facility charges and taxes, and part of that is just that there's less competition.
Yeah, and so this was kind of a beacon. Porter was a beacon for people in Toronto and Montreal to fly to the United States for what I would think is a relatively inexpensive fare.
Yeah, I mean they weren't a super low-cost carrier kind of model necessarily. They still, if you were doing walk-up fares, Toronto to New York or something, or Boston or something like that, it wasn't like super, super cheap, but it definitely added the level of competition that it was necessary to make it not the $1,500 round trip for the 300-mile flight kind of thing.
Yep.
that Air Canada was charging in the past.
And Air Canada operates out of Bishop, right? I mean, they operate, I think, Montreal or something.
Yeah, they've got their props that fly to Montreal and back, if I remember.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's sad news. I thought Porter was a cool carrier. I never got to try him, but I thought the idea was cool with the whole lounge concept. And,
I've flown him a couple times. I like him. The only thing I can say at this point is at least it's not Meigs Field, right? Like, at some point, you almost expect someone to come in and bulldoze the place.
Mm-hmm.
Except, I don't know if you can drive a bulldozer through the tunnel to get there. That would be challenging, right? Bring them across on the ferry, maybe?
Well, they mean
it is an island.
Especially after they just built the
tunnel.
I mean, it's ironic because you cross the pond and you see London, where London City is prospering, and they're trying to grow.
And the new mayor just decided he's going to buy up the necessary land to build it's not extending the runway, but like additional taxi stands or something, or parking stands.
Right.
Which may or may not actually happen, but he significantly reversed course on prior administrations.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, other cities are looking at, growing city airports. I mean, Haneda is another great example, and Toronto's going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, you think this drives business, right, to downtown areas where people want to be, that are doing business and buying expensive fares relatively. So it's surprising and it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Lines. So I think we have a lot of Delta news. I made a post about Delta's new commercial, the Seattle commercial that they put out, and at the same time they had an article released about how Minneapolis is primed for China routes. And I thought those two things were kind of at odds with each other, because the whole idea was that Seattle was going to become the West Coast to Asia hub and was going to really be the Asia hub for Delta. And it just seemed like that wasn't happening. And now, today, which we're recording this on Monday the 16th, we hear that Delta has said we're not going to do any more international growth at Seattle until the facilities they're grown. So I think that happens in 2019.
Nailed it.
And that's a long delay.
Yeah.
But look, they can use that as an excuse, but the reality is, I think we all know that Seattle has not been
the business.
Yeah, it's not as successful as they wanted it to be.
I mean, if you're talking about we're going to wait 3 more years to do any international growth, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to add domestic flights? Because the only reason to add all that domestic traffic is to feed the international.
Yep.
Or to truly try to take over and beat Alaska, but that didn't work that well either. Doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, and what do the facilities get you? I mean, I know they have parking problems right now. I know that they have a lot of issues with getting the planes to the gates and getting people on board. But you would think that you could, manipulate your schedule a little bit so that you could have banks of international flights to accommodate this, and if you really wanted to grow. To me, it just doesn't seem like they're very interested in growing. Like Foz said, that's not doing as well as they thought it would do. And Alaska's putting up a hell of a fight on the domestic front.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the domestic lift falling off in the next few months as well.
Do you think just because of this announcement that people just aren't going to send their business through Seattle on Delta?
Well, I mean, if there's fewer onward places to go, you're not going to go through Seattle to go from San Francisco to Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Right? The only way you're going to connect in Seattle is if you're going north or west.
Yeah. Does Salt Lake City do that well for them? Is Salt Lake City really a critical hub for Delta?
I think it's West Coast, intra-West Coast flow. Right, that's how it's their version of United's Denver.
Yeah, exactly. It's great for cross-country traffic.
Yeah.
Well, even north-south.
North-south, but you're not going to go from California to Salt Lake City to go to Seattle. That's an outlier case.
No, but I'm thinking like upper Midwest. Montana, the Dakotas, Idaho.
Yeah, but they've got Minneapolis for that. They don't need Salt Lake for that. There's a lot more lift into Minneapolis.
From that into California?
Oh, you're thinking towards California. Yeah, for the Dakotas, I imagine you would not go to Salt Lake. You would actually go to Minneapolis. There's a lot more lift from the Dakotas into Minneapolis than there's Salt Lake.
It's just it's interesting that
it's not a good connecting point, right? The same reason Miami's not a good connecting point if you're flying American.
Yeah.
The same unless you're going onward to South America. The same reason that no one's put a hub really into Boston to go. You don't connect there. JetBlue has a hub, but it's all O&D business travel.
So with this news, I mean, they're saying that they're going to grow Minneapolis. Is essentially that's the language we're hearing with the A350 deliveries that they're going to get. They're saying, except
they just delayed the A350 deliveries. So they're postponing 4 deliveries. They were supposed to take the first ones next year, and now they're talking 2019 or 2020, aren't they?
But what we do know is they can fly 332s from Detroit, Minneapolis into China.
Right. They've done that.
They've been doing that.
To northern China, right?
To Beijing and Shanghai and stuff.
Yeah, they can't do like inside, like interior China.
No.
Okay.
But they've also not been interested in secondary markets the way United has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, remember, they're going to build Haneda into the massive hub that they want.
You're hilarious. I think that's where they're missing the mark, though, is that they're kind of saying, well, look, we're not going to interior China. We have a partnership for that. But it seems like their partnerships aren't strong enough to feed people across the pond from these interior cities into Seattle even. So how do we expect them to do the same
There's also
thing?
the challenge where you're not allowed to do true partnerships with China yet. You can't do a full joint venture.
Yeah. And at the same time, you got American making changes to their... I mean, they announced they're going to get rid of some A330s as well.
All the 300 series.
Yeah, which is basically the Philadelphia fleet.
Right.
And are they planning to replace all of those planes? So
they do have a big block of deferred, some deferred and some just planned for now in next couple of years, 787 deliveries.
Eights or nines?
I believe eights.
Okay.
The 333s, they only have 9 of them.
Yeah.
The bulk of their 330 fleet is 332s.
It's not that many more, though, is it?
It's 15.
Okay.
So
dropping 9 planes out of the fleet is a lot.
Yep.
They're also accelerating retirement of 767s.
Which they also have 39 of, which is the surprising one.
Yeah, I don't remember if there were details if they were accelerating the legacy AA or US side.
I hope the U.S. side.
The U.S. didn't have any 763s. They only had 762s, which are all long gone.
They're already gone, so this is the American ones now. Yeah, I mean, listen, when you get both Delta and American saying, whoa, international not growing so fast, they're also pissed that Norwegian got its operations out of Ireland.
Yeah. But it's a serious slowdown on international traffic, right? If they're saying we're just not
going to
growing
slow growth.
Yeah, slow growth.
I don't think. My initial response was, "Damn, they're going to cut a bunch." The reality now is, I think it's just we're not going to grow as fast for Delta. For American, for Delta, it actually may, with the accelerated 747 retirement and deferring A350s. I don't know how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, the announcement they put out today, the filing, I would be a little scared.
But it's
just the things that they're talking about cutting. It's like what I wonder is how much of it is them demanding or sort of responding to Wall Street's demands versus what makes sense for the business, sort of to run an airline. And I know we've talked in the past about they run them like businesses now, not like airlines. But I can't help but wonder and think that some of this is Wall Street demands unit revenue growth all the time.
Yeah.
Or we're not going to buy your stock and downgrade you and whatever. And like when the market is growing and you're dealing with competition, sometimes you grow with a lower yield for a period of time. And admittedly, they've been doing it for a while now. But sometimes you grow with diminishing yields until you've established the new market that you're trying to build. And then you can start to raise fares again. Like you can't just show up with a ton of capacity and assume that fares are always going to be high everywhere.
Yeah. And if they're not going to grow out of Seattle internationally, which is really the draw for people in Seattle, right? If you're an O&D customer in Seattle, and you can get everywhere nonstop on Delta that you need to go for business, and they're not going to grow that hurts, right? Because they're not going to fly backwards to Minneapolis to go to Asia. And
I would assume not.
And you're not going to fly south. You may fly to LA. I mean, but they only have LA Beijing, I think, right? Is that the one they applied for, or did they applied for Shanghai?
They have Shanghai and they applied for Beijing.
Yeah, I think that's how
it is. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, you have those two things going for you. Yeah, you can fly south, but what's the point? I live in a city that you have a hub.
They have Tokyo too, ish.
Yeah. Well, it's true. That's the other piece of news, right? They're saying we're kind of cutting Narita on the assumption we're getting the Haneda slot.
Yeah,
that was very presumptuous.
Well, it's Delta, so.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's their idle threat of, or not necessarily idle threat, but we just won't fly to Tokyo if you don't give us Haneda. Well, so I'd love to see someone call them and just not give them the slot.
It's interesting. I feel like when United didn't get Haneda slots originally, it was a little bit of the DOT saying, you guys have been a mess for so long with the merger, and you haven't delivered what you promised. Settle down, and once you've figured your shit out, we'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Right? And one could argue that Delta is not playing nice right now, and especially with the Haneda slots, was all over the place, moving them around and trying different things and not operating in good faith. That you could almost see the DOT saying the same thing, like, settle down, and once you figure things out, we'll give you some. I don't think they're going to not give them any. I think Delta gets at least one, which will probably from LA. But I don't know. It's I can also actually see the DOT being really pissy. Actually, I couldn't see this, but I could imagine them being really pissy and only giving them Minneapolis, which was their second choice.
I was going to say, why would you give, like, if you're the DOT and you want to grow the number of places you're going, why would you give LA when there's already 2 other carriers there?
Yeah, it's a good question.
But at the same time, Delta's already a carrier on that route as well. they fly LA Haneda.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're renegotiating at this point, Delta's already said they're willing to fly Minneapolis. Why wouldn't you say, well, we're going to give you Minneapolis because AA applied for, has had the LA slot longer, as has ANA.
Oh, no, AA hasn't. AA only just got it this year.
I'm thinking I'm backwards then.
Yeah, I mean, I could still, I would be surprised if Delta didn't get to keep LA. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
It's kind of it's a weird situation because we've got carriers saying, oh, well, we don't want to grow, but give us the routes we want, right?
Right. So, like, had you, and especially with Delta saying the only real growth is if we can connect onward.
Yeah.
Right. Where if they're already giving up Narita because they know they get at least 6 months of daytime access into Haneda, because that's what the rules are, right? They get to keep their existing slot but operate it during the day, so they can move that one flight to daytime until March. That, sort of justifies dropping Narita, but at some level, the whole point of Delta's experience in Tokyo was having that Narita hub. Now, that said, when you look at their charts and some of their filings, one of the things they noted was they're down like 30% in capacity to Japan in the last 5 or 6 years. Right from 2010 or 2011, they went from like 2.6 million seats to 1.7 million. It's a massive drop.
Now, do you think that has something to do with Delta's strategy of not aggressively pursuing corporate customers and rather going for, the people who just buy tickets one-off here and there? Like, celebrities are a great example. They've done a lot more catering to the celebrity crowd rather than the corporate customers because it's higher revenue and it's less work for them.
I don't know. The filing that they put out today, again, with like all their changes, brags about how they're growing the volume of tickets sold to corporate customers, but even with that, revenue is down. So their corporate numbers, right, they got more customers, but still making less money on it.
But I think every carrier can say that they're growing the number of corporate tickets they're selling in the last year and a half because more people are traveling because the airfare has come down.
I'd love to see United's answer to that.
Do you think that they've lost corporate customers?
I think the volume of corporate tickets for United is down since in the last 18 months.
Because what did we see just recently? I mean, it's kind of on Flyer Talk, and I'm sure other people.
I think part of that is oil and gas. The energy industry is down.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, I seem to remember some of their statements in earnings calls where that corporate traffic, I don't remember if it was numbers are flat or revenue or numbers are down or revenue is down, but United is struggling on that front, and it just is.
And another piece of evidence in that is there was a topic on Flyer Talk, and some other people have brought this up that we've talked to, that they were bumped in status on United up to sometimes from gold to 1K or something, and they got an email saying, oh, for this year, here, enjoy 1K status on us or something.
Yeah, a lot of people moved up one level. I actually even know some general members. One guy got free economy plus pass domestic use.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I and Foz know this is happening. Most Joe Schmoes aren't going to know this is happening, right? Unless they get the email.
Right.
But as people know about this, like this is an irritant, right, to some people, because it's like, hey, I spent my money and I flew you guys, and the guy who didn't fly you is getting the same benefits that I earned, right? And so this comes back to like the whole rewarding customers and rewarding corporate customers. But it's obvious that they've lost a chunk of the base, right? That's why you go out and do these things.
I don't know how much of it is corporate versus not, but at the same time, like targeted promotions have been happening for a long, long time. That's not new.
Of course. But I'm just saying that it's kind of a sign of a little bit of a struggle, right? You're trying to bring some people back that have been customers in the past.
Sure.
And so that reflects on how you're doing currently.
Yeah. No, I would say, but I guess my point would be, and I think we're talking about two different aspects of this. I'm not as sold on the, oh my God, this is unfair. It's making my life miserable because I actually paid you for my flights.
Yeah.
I'm less. I mean, I know Foz, you were talking to someone about that today. About people who is a platinum getting 1K isn't necessarily as useful because they are still flying a decent amount. It's not. Right. I should say useful. It's more useful to that person than the random one-off.
Yeah, I mean the challenge is with United. People I've talked to United in the last year or so, they've realized that they have devalued 1K extensively, and so they've actually made a lot of effort. And like I can actually say, in the last 6 months, Group 1 lines have gotten much smaller than they used to be. So, that's an example where they've been doing just a basic example, but they've been doing things, and my 1K experience has gotten much better. So at a time when they finally got around to making 1K better, now they're giving it to people who haven't earned it.
Yeah, but I guess the flip side of that is if the Group 1 line is shorter, that means there's not enough first class and 1K passengers, right?
I mean, they're not short like 5 or 6 people. They're still, it just doesn't wrap around the terminal like Group 2 does at this point.
Yeah. I'm Group 2 now. It was a scary experience.
So
I think I asked Seth the other day, I was like, does Group 2 include credit card people? Or
Yep. It includes everything but 1Ks in first class.
And I'm looking around and I'm like, this Group 2 line is huge. It was big, and so that's why. And I thought Platinums were in Group 1 for some reason as well.
Oh, they are.
Okay.
Not anymore, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be new to me.
That was told to me by our common friend at United probably a month ago.
That's an interesting change.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why those lines got shorter.
Yeah, definitely could be. So it's between Delta and United's corporate customer stuff. Like that's all interesting. But here we see United in San Francisco growing China pretty rapidly. And Delta kind of saying, we're not going to grow Seattle to China just yet. And if we do grow China, we're going to grow it out of Minneapolis.
But remember that Delta has fewer planes that can do it.
Yeah.
And also worth remembering, the new president is former Northwest.
So he's loyal to Minneapolis.
Well, I think it's partly loyal, and it's partly you work with what you know.
Yeah.
And so maybe and if he's concerned about the revenue numbers and investors and things like that, and you look at it and you say, you know what? We know we've had success from Minneapolis, Detroit, the old Northwest hubs in the past, although, to be fair, Seattle was one of those.
Wait. We talked about me going way too far back? When was Seattle a Northwest hub?
To Asia?
Yes.
I feel like in the late 90s.
United was.
Northwest had... do I need to go back even further? I swear that Northwest had flights into Asia from Seattle around that era. Am I off?
I don't think it was in the late 90s.
Okay. I've had a few margaritas tonight. I could be,
So we can't use Seth for fact checking, and the producer's not on, so we're screwed.
Sounded good though, didn't it? Until Foz stopped me, it sounded great.
So one other thing I was thinking about was Alaska recently announced that they're partnering with Japan Airlines, JAL, and I think that's kind of a brilliant move because they have Delta flying Seattle to Tokyo, and then Tokyo onward to a few destinations. But now they can say, well, look, we have nonstops to Tokyo because JAL flies from Vancouver. They fly from up and down the West Coast, which is what Alaska's trying to be the airline that does, right? The West Coast airline.
Does JAL have Seattle service also? Or?
I don't think they have JAL service yet. ANA does. But I wouldn't be surprised if JAL put a 787 to Seattle.
Yeah, well, remember, JAL's, because of their bankruptcy, is sort of in the penalty box in terms of expansion right now, internationally.
Yeah, so I think like Vancouver's like the big thing because it's a 45-minute flight from Seattle. Yeah. And then you have up and down the West Coast. You've got San Francisco, you got LA, you got San Diego.
San Diego, yeah, San Jose. Yeah.
And then you have everything east. And I think it was brilliant by Alaska to say, well, we got flights to Japan and we got flights to all over Asia if you connect on them, and earn some miles while you're at it. And maybe that's, Delta's looking at that and going, well, they're playing the game a little bit better than we are at this point. So it's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like that partnership. I like that partnership a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up new things, and it makes Alaska, it brings Alaska closer to the One World Alliance a little more, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I don't know if they'll ever join up. I don't see that happening.
No.
But on that topic, then. Alaska has kind of publicly stated that they want to displace Southwest in California. They want to be the California carrier. And as Foz said on the B-roll, they finally explained what the merger was for.
A little bit. I agree.
We hope.
Yeah.
It's an option. It's unclear if it's the option, but let's go with it for now, give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of jumped out of the dots, lines, and destinations thing to talk about this, but it's an interesting play by them. They're not really. I don't see them as a California carrier. I see them as a Pacific.
They do
Northwest.
have a lot of service, though.
They do. They have a ton, and I think with the merger, they'll have more intra-California stuff. I don't see that as being a question anymore. I think San Francisco will kind of become a mini hub.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. As far as destinations, Seth,
I would say to finish on that thought, though, even with San Francisco as a hub for them, Southwest has so many flights from so many cities within California.
yeah.
Up and down the coast, they've got such a massive volume. I don't know. You can talk about Delta launching shuttle service out of Seattle and this and that. Southwest is effectively shuttle for dozens of city pairs. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not dozens, but tens. There's more than 10. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and they fly into SFO and Oakland, right?
And San Jose.
And San Jose, and so they got the whole Bay Area, and then they fly into pretty much, I think, everywhere in the Los Angeles area.
Right, and like I say, they fly to all those places from Burbank and Long Beach coming soon, and LAX.
They left San Francisco for a while as well.
Southwest.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Where'd they go? I mean, they just said we're not going to fly here anymore.
Yeah, they just said it was too expensive. I mean, and literally what happened is, because I was living in San Diego at the time, San Francisco went from being a $200 ticket to an $800 ticket because the only carrier flying it was United. And then Alaska came in and they started competing with United. And then 6 months later, Southwest reintroduced service and Alaska bailed on the market because they weren't going to compete with Southwest.
Interesting. So, I mean, Alaska sees Southwest as a huge competitor and it'd rather see him go away. And
at this point, they might actually be big enough to take them on.
Yeah.
Certainly post-merger, and it's worth noting that today, which is Monday, like Stephen said, Alaska filed a release saying that they received a request from the DOJ, I think, for more information from the Antitrust Division, and they filed the paperwork. And, it's a standard thing, and they don't expect it to change anything and still expect it closed by the end of the year. But the merger is progressing.
Yeah. Destinations. So, Seth, you were in New Orleans for a wedding.
Yes.
And now you're in Puerto Vallarta for another wedding.
For a wedding, yeah.
And so let's just talk about those two things. I mean, you kind of had on the lost recording, we'll call it, you had a pretty good synopsis of your time in New Orleans. What about Puerto Vallarta? Let's add to those.
Sure. So I think, on the New Orleans side of things, I'll say, and I wrote a post about this, so I'll link to it, but basically the French Quarter is spectacular as long as you can manage to avoid Bourbon Street. And Bourbon Street's a shithole. Like, just really, really bad. I don't understand why people like that.
You mean the smell of urine and
vomit.
And vomit.
And and stale beer, and I don't know, like, maybe it's because the last couple times I've been there have been off season, so to speak, but you walk through Bourbon Street, like, look into some of these, the bars on the side of the road there, and it's this massive open space designed to cram as many people as possible in while serving ridiculously sweet frozen slushies filled with alcohol, and they're dead empty. And there's something depressing about an empty bar to me.
Yeah.
Especially when you look in, like, they're fully staffed. They've got the bartender standing there, and it's just, like, disgusting. I don't know. I mean, the other entertaining part to me was it was Mother's Day Sunday. My wife and I had to sort of walk a block on Bourbon Street as we were crossing back, headed back to our hotel, and walk past some of the strip clubs. And, the guys out front trying to get people into the strip club at 3 o'clock on Mother's Day afternoon was just...
Sad.
Yeah. The women working were bored enough that some of them, put on a few extra pieces of clothing and were standing out on the street talking to the guys, but it was just bad.
But did you have a good beignet or some good food while you were there?
I did have good food. There was still excellent food available. What I would say is the short version is skip Acme Oyster House and go to Felix's instead. It's across the street. It usually has a shorter line. It's way more casual, in my opinion. And maybe casual's not the right word, but, like, just a little old.
Yeah.
Laminate counters, friendly guys that if you sit at the bar, which helps you avoid the line in my experience, especially going just as me, you can get in a little faster and sit up at the bar and just order a dozen, and they don't bother putting them on a tray. The guy just shucks them and puts them on the counter in front of you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, it's a little more old style, old New Orleans, I don't know, it's old school. I like it.
Yeah. Laid back. More laid back, for sure. Beignet-wise, Café du Monde?
Beignet-wise, yeah, I really was disappointed in Café du Monde.
Yeah. Most people are, I think.
I part of that is I struggle wondering how anyone thinks waiting in a line for an hour for a donut is a good idea.
Hey, come to Portland, man. They do it all the time.
Well, again, idiots. But even the takeout line was like 20 minutes for us, I feel like.
That's too long.
So, and then we saw 3 different bachelorette parties in line in the middle of the afternoon. This was on a Saturday afternoon, so it was midday. It was a little hot out, but looking for a table for 12 in the little square there. And Jackson Square is nice if you're into buskers and fortune tellers, but I still don't know how do you decide which fortune teller to use?
No idea.
Right? There's 10 of them lined up in front of the church there. I really have no idea how I'm supposed to know. Is one of them supposed to say something to you to explain why they know your fortune already, so that's the one you use?
Don't they have Yelp reviews?
They didn't
now that you say that, I should have checked. You're right. I did not do my proper research.
1 star. Did not get the reading I thought I would.
Yeah. Promises of fame and fortune unsuccessful.
Told me I was safe and sound. Got hit by a bus 5 minutes later.
1 star. We're terrible.
Yeah, but in a good way. What was I going to say? Then Puerto Vallarta, just switching gears a little bit, spent 3 nights in town at a little boutique hotel a couple blocks off the water, and 2 nights now in the Hyatt Ziva, down a little further south of town, isolated, resort, all-inclusive. Very different experiences, you might not be surprised to learn.
Really?
Yeah. Who knew?
Good in a good way or in a bad way, and in which direction?
Yes. We checked in. Our room wasn't ready. We were early, but wanted to get here and be ready as soon as the room got ready because we had a wedding the first day we were here. So checked in. They took our bags. Super polite. The staff has mostly been top notch. We checked in. The guy who helped me when I went back 2.5 hours later to see if our room was ready yet said, "Oh yes, Mr. Miller, we have your room now." Before I told him my name, he remembered me. Like little things like that really, really impressed me. The flip side of that is they also called our room 3 times because the do not disturb sign was on the door, and they wanted to know if we wanted maid service. And I have a hard time explaining to them, but it says do not disturb. That actually means don't disturb me. And that includes the phone. So, win some, lose some, I guess. Now, the food is buffet style, cruise ship-esque. Like, it's okay. None of it is fabulous. Even though I actually had a couple decent entrees at the Mexican restaurant for dinner tonight, but there's a lot of mediocre food, and I feel like, people talk about the value proposition of all-inclusive. Even if you wanted to drink a case of beer every day, or a bottle worth of rum every day, like, the stuff's not expensive in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, and, I always hear people talk about that hotel, La Ziva.
Yeah.
I see blog posts about it's a great value for your points or whatever. But
I don't know what the points price would be. We got a bottle of wine as our platinum amenity, because I have high platinum status somehow, I think I don't know, actually. And it's a lovely Mexican red.
Oh, what region of Mexico?
Baja, California.
I didn't know they grew grapes there.
Me neither. But I did read the label to come up with that. On the off chance I was questioned, thank you. I'm glad my research paid off. I'm not going to be opening the bottle.
No?
No. I saw the color, and it's just not right.
It makes you wonder how many other people haven't opened it, and that's why it's that color.
No, they were serving it last night at the wedding also, and they had open versions of it that looked the same. So
were you going to...
No.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
You could have put some sugar in it, right? Or something?
I can't imagine it needs to be any sweeter. That's my concern. It's an all-inclusive resort where all the booze is free. All the cocktails are free. Why do I also need a bottle of wine in my room? There's many other, a little plate of local anythings might have been heck, give me a sampler taster of some hot sauces and a bag of chips. I don't know. Give me some, technically it's local, right? It is from Mexico, but give me something that speaks to the actual local experience here, which is not red wine.
And is it on the beach?
Very much so. I've watched sunset while we've been recording now. It was lovely.
Oh, that's nice. So, at least you had that going for you.
Yeah. No, the beach is great. It's actually clearer water than up in town, calmer. There's a slightly fewer of the sort of merchants on the street trying to sell you stuff, or on the beach trying to sell you stuff. So, there still are some, but they're relatively chill about things.
Yeah.
They go in nicely. And there's a fleet of men and women running around to serve you drinks or whatever you want 24/7. If you're into sitting on a beach and being buzzed all day long and having someone take care of you, there's nothing wrong with this place. I highly recommend it. Seriously. It's gorgeous weather. It was a little hot a couple of days, but you jump in the pool or jump in the ocean and cool yourself off. And by the time you get back, your boy's back with another stack of frozen margaritas or frozen daiquiris or whatever you've been ordering all day.
Well, I've never been to Puerto Vallarta, so now maybe I'll have to go and try this hotel.
Yeah. I would be surprised if you enjoyed it. I gave you some recommendations up in town that I think you'd find much more pleasant.
Okay. Sounds good.
The good news is in town, the food is spectacular also and cheap.
Oh, that's good.
So,
yeah. I'd like to go down there. I'd like to spend some time on the beach.
Yeah.
I've heard the west coast of Mexico is actually really nice. So
it is. No, it is a beautiful area. It's actually not too hard to get to for you. Yeah. The bride, much of her family is actually from up where you are. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, they made it very easily.
You could take Alaska.
Indeed.
Yeah, we'll see about that. So we have a couple of other random stories to talk about. Singapore and a few other low-cost carriers. Singapore has a low-cost carrier called Scoot in Singapore, and a few other low-cost carriers are starting an alliance. I thought this was kind of random, but kind of cool at the same time. Do you know anything about this, Seth?
I do. I actually know the guy behind it, so bonus.
Well,
I don't know if I told you that before we started recording.
No, you didn't. Yeah, you just hit me upside the head with it there.
Yeah, look at that. I know some people. It's an interesting concept. The general idea is they're trying to build a system where low-cost carriers can, both for revenue and award tickets, interline, essentially, and do it without the overhead and pain of traditional IATA interline relationships, and really without the cost of that.
Okay.
And so trying to build ways to earn points when flying on alternate carriers and redeem those points and build multi-city and multi-country itineraries. I don't recall specifically which ones have been announced and which haven't for airlines. I don't want to say anything out loud because I probably know things I'm not supposed to. But from what I recall, they wanted, there's some in China and, some into Hong Kong and things like that. And so trying to build sort of these multinational itineraries and multi-carrier itineraries was very, very hard historically. And this actually makes it a lot easier. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so it's good for flyers. It's not.
I think it will be.
It's not necessarily price wise. Like they're not going to be joint venturing on routes and stuff with.
No, none of this is cooperation in that context. Really, what it is a lot of sort of we can sell your tickets and we can come up with sort of loyalty pseudo reciprocity. It's not going to be full elite benefits or anything like that. It's really just about having a system where you can put in a partner frequent flyer number instead of just your own.
Yeah.
Right, and sort of they don't. If I remember correctly, they don't have the redemption stuff worked out yet. It's really, at this point, a lot of early stage stuff, but they are building it and implementing it, and it's pretty cool from the technology bits I've seen so far.
Oh, cool.
Now, will they also make sure that the brand, when they brand you as they do the cattle call, it always matches across the carriers?
Your boarding pass and all that stuff is operated by the operating carrier, so none of that stuff is going to be synchronized.
That writes it off for Foz. Like he's
Foz
nope,
is disappointed.
Not doing it.
Nope.
Is that because you want the cattle call to be? I mean, it's not like you're going to get elite status, so.
No, it was just a joke. I mean, the chance of me on a low-cost carrier, I probably slim to none anyways.
Yeah.
Also, American has kind of hinted at a new business class seat since they were having all those issues. Did you guys see the link I shared, like with the picture in it? It looks very similar to what they have on the 777-300, the 777Ws, the 77Ws, but a little bit different. So it has like more of a table. It almost looks like the cutter seat. But it's not clear if this is actually what the seat's going to be. Forbes says it is, but I haven't seen anything that confirms that.
Yeah, well, so BE Aerospace is, obviously, they're the 800-pound gorilla, right?
Yep.
They're the big guy. They're almost certainly going to be able to deliver on time. And it does look similar to the 77W, but that was a Zodiac seat, right?
Yeah.
So that raises interesting questions of like who owns that intellectual property and where the ability to deliver that is or comes from. But
yeah, I mean, they call it the Super Diamond configuration, all aisle access. I think it's going to be better than the 787 seat for sure, the one that they currently have.
Well, the 787 seats are awful.
But they patented those.
They're awful. They're connected in pairs, so when the person behind you or in front of you, depending on where you're sitting, moves, like jostles around, your seat moves with it. And they're narrower than the standard Zodiac seats.
So it's not a pleasant seat to be in.
No.
I think everything I've read, everyone's reviews of it I've read, have been not very positive.
No.
So it's a good thing that Zodiac managed to not deliver them?
Kinda sounds that way.
From a passenger perspective?
Yeah, it sounds that way. So I think that's it. I was going to say, did we have anything else? Oh, the pre-check. So I think we should just bring this up and talk about it a little bit because I think it's important for people. Lines at the TSA at airports have been ridiculous for the past, I don't know, 5 months, 4 months. And it just seems to be getting worse. I think there was a video posted on YouTube about Midway, and it was from...
Yeah, that was just today. It was a 2-hour wait at Midway.
Yeah, and that's insane. And so if you're flying, try to get there early, earlier than you think you need to be there, especially like peak travel times. But pre-check lines haven't been that bad, in my experience, in the last few weeks. Has it been bad for you guys?
Well, I mean, what do you define as bad?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had like a 3-minute wait at PDX while the regular line was completely backed up.
So I waited the other day. I think I waited 28 minutes to get through pre-check at Newark.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the regular line was 2 hours. So, I call that a win.
Yeah.
By default, but it's still a win.
Last time in Newark, it was probably about 22, 23 minutes. I mean, but, you go back to when it was 3 minutes. And it's just ridiculous that they keep. And the problem with Newark is they keep reducing the number of lanes they open.
And then they close a whole section of Terminal C's.
The C3 checkpoint, they got rid of they're doing construction on the main security checkpoint, so they have 2 lanes tucked away behind the GS area that are currently open.
Wow.
And that's all pre-check now, but it's still tight.
In theory, it is all pre-check, but the problem is it's only pre-check during peak times. If you go during non-peak times, it's just anyone.
I did not know that.
It's group one. I think it's priority and pre-check. So it's not really pre-check at that point.
Interesting.
And I mean, I think
the fact that the TSA can't fully staff a massive operation like Newark sufficiently is just like depressing.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an article last week that broke that, of all people, the Port Authority is considering dropping the TSA and doing private security.
Wow.
I think everybody's talking about that at this point because passengers are so pissed, but I don't know how anyone's going to be able to ramp up that fast.
I mean, at this point, one of the issues is that the airlines are having an issue because they're having so many people miss flights.
Yeah. And American has been very outspoken on that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, their spokesman in that area used to work for the TSA. As a spokesman.
Well, I came through San Francisco. I flew back from San Francisco on Friday afternoon, kind of peak evening time, and it was moving. I mean, pre-check took 5 minutes because I got the secondary random screening thing. But other than that, like I looked at the regular line and people were coming through it pretty quick. And San Francisco is a private company that handles the security there.
So. Well, and pre-check, they really just need to have an aptitude test. I can't tell you the number of people who get in there and then start taking everything out. Or don't. Like, literally, last time I went through, there was a guy who had a phone in his pocket and couldn't understand why the metal detector kept going off.
Yeah.
Sir, is there anything in your pockets? No. Is there anything in your pockets, sir? Oh, my phone.
Yeah, he went through 3 times and he'd keep taking random, like, change out and stuff, but not the phone.
Oh, man. Good stuff. I think that's really it. I mean, I think people should I don't know if people should sign up for pre-check necessarily, but I think that we shouldn't encourage that.
I saw something somewhere that said only like 10,000 people enrolled in pre-check, I feel like. That number just seems shockingly low to me.
Yeah. And I wonder if that means that that's how many people signed up for pre-check, or if that's how many people are actually in the program. Because anybody with global entry is going to be pre-check.
Yeah, does that include me? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it may be only direct pre-check, but even still on top of that, I mean, just the sheer number of people flying.
Yeah.
I think part of this, right, the TSA was banking on more people signing up, and so they started cutting staffing. More people didn't sign up, and then the lines got longer and they couldn't staff it. And so now, even if you have signed up, you run the chance of pre-check being closed when you get there.
Yeah, exactly. I think for people, our listeners, I think if you don't have pre-check, I wouldn't sign up for pre-check. I would have signed up for global entry. Get the 5 years of skipping the lines at immigration and pre-check on top of it.
But so that's a flawed mentality in the TSA where they're shutting down pre-check to staff regular lines, because then what's the incentive to get pre-check?
Not having to take stuff out of your bag. I mean, that's really what they're selling it as,
but,
right?
But that only works if they actually have pre-check lanes open.
Right.
When did I go through that in New Orleans? I think I was leaving the other day, and it wasn't, and they gave me a card that said I could
keep
somehow...
your jacket.
No, actually, you know what? My card let me keep my stuff in my bag. That was weird.
Yeah, because that's not normally...
Oh, no, sorry. Let me go through the metal detector instead of the nudoscope.
Right, so it was the pre-check light, which they'll do in standard lanes, where you don't have to take your shoes off. You just take everything else out.
No, for me, that's just a laptop. I don't ever take the liquids out, so...
Well, I mean, because I've had that now at San Diego. I've had it in Milwaukee, because they don't have enough people. So, like at the United terminal in Milwaukee, which is like it just holds, CRJs and an E-145. They have like a regular line, so they give you the card, and you walk through it and don't take your shoes off, and that's it. You have to take your laptop out still, and you're supposed to take out your liquids. But it's like, well, what's the point of this? This, and you have like a pre-check sign up above it, like, oh, it's pre-check.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
My fun one of that was there's a sign, like, as I was waiting in line, it was like, how was your experience today? Tweet at us. And so I did. They asked me to. I was just obeying the TSA rules. I know better than to fight with the TSA.
Yeah. And, I went through IAH, Houston Intercontinental, 2 weeks ago, coming home, and went through C security point with pre-check, and it was fast until you got to the bag section, like where you actually do the screening. Like getting through the ID check was quick, but they were just like taking their sweet time checking the bags, going through the X-ray. So we sat there for probably 15 minutes while they scanned bags, and it's just that seems crazy to me.
Like London style.
Yeah, I mean
Heathrow.
Every other word was bag check. It's like.
Oh.
So anyway, I think that wraps up the show, guys. You guys got anything else? Any other random thoughts for the week?
Time for another margarita.
Make sure the recordings are working. Mine's working.
All right, I think mine is too.
Cool. All right, we don't have to do it twice. Sweet.
You mean a third time?
Yeah, exactly. So To our listeners, you can find us on Twitter at DotsLines. You can follow us online, moredotsmorelines.com. Leave us a comment there. iTunes, of course. Always, we're happy to have a review from you if you have that time to do that. And thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.